I grew up in South Texas, more widely known as the Rio Grande Valley. I'm the youngest of 3 kids, and we all lived with our mom and stepdad in a great big red brick house. It was quite a culture shock moving from the piney woods of East Texas all the way to the flat, desert-like land of the RGV. There were hardly any trees, mostly just palm trees and shrubs. We saw a cactus here and there, and the wildlife consisted mostly of jackrabbits, rattlesnakes, and armadillos. When we started school, we learned quickly that the people were superstitious, to say the least. I was in the 2nd grade when we moved into that house on Jackie Street, and right from the beginning I felt uneasy. I used to be a happy-go-lucky kid with nothing to worry about. I made friends with all the neighborhood kids, and I even became best friends with a girl who lived directly behind us. She had the most superstitious family out of anyone that I had ever met. She was the oldest of 4 girls, and their mother was very overly protective, at least in my eyes. She wouldn't let them watch Harry Potter because it was associated with witchcraft. They went to church 3 times a week, and they didn't even celebrate Halloween. All that being said, the mom loved to tell ghost stories and Mexican folklore. It was the one cool thing about her, and the thing I loved most about visiting their home. One night, she told us the story of the Owl Witch. Typically, it will transform into an owl with a woman's head, or a large owl the size of a human, with a few things that are off-putting. If you see a Yakuza, you're supposed to pray for your life in Spanish, and supposedly it will leave you alone. It's also been known to make a whistling sound, like a human whistling. If you answer it back with a whistle of your own, the Yakuza will sweep down and carry you away. If you wake up in the morning and see large scratches on your doors or windowsills, it means that the Yakuza was there and is coming for you, so you must prepare yourself accordingly. I can't whistle, and my friend's mom knew this, so she would jokingly tell me that I wouldn't have anything to worry about. She would also lovingly tell us that my friend and I are gorditas, so we couldn't be carried away as easily. After years of hearing this story in various ways from teachers, other friends' parents, and in books, it was about as stuck in my head as an old wives' tale. I would get excited about hearing it around Halloween at school. It was just another scary story, and would give us kids an adrenaline rush. I never thought that those stories would one day become a reality for me. It happened the summer of 5th grade. My best friend and I were on her trampoline. It was summer, so we were up kind of late, maybe around 10 p.m., and it was a full moon. We spent time talking and looking at the stars until we heard whistling. We knew not to whistle back. Instead, we lay there frozen, still looking at the sky and listening intently to the whistling coming from the distance. I look at my friend, and she is absolutely paralyzed. She's praying in Spanish and squeezing my hand as tightly as possible. A few minutes go by, and we hear more whistling, getting closer. My friend stops praying and says that we should head inside. I agree without hesitation, and we start inching toward the edge of the trampoline to escape. In that moment, I hear it, and I'll never forget the bone-rattling sound and the twisted image that scarred me for life. We felt the wind from its wings, and saw it just maybe 15 feet above our heads. A huge, snowy white owl, maybe 12 feet wide from wingtip to wingtip, floating right above us. Its eyes were jet black, and it looked mostly like an owl, but its feet were human. It had huge, human feet with long black talons that seemed to twitch as its cold, demonic eyes stared down at its prey. It locked eyes with me and let out a screech. My heart jumped into my throat, and I have never ran inside a house so quickly. We cried together while praying, as we heard it continue to flap around outside. We held on to each other with her rosary in our hands and continued praying as loudly as we could. All of a sudden it was gone, onto its next victim. We're both terrified of owls to this day. We won't even look them up in books. Every time I see one, I think of the face of the Yakuza. Almost human and almost owl. A strange, demonic hybrid not of this world. Believe the tales. Don't go outside alone, and never respond to strange whistling. Something might just snatch you up and carry you far, far away. I live in Eastern Europe. Well, more specifically in Romania. You may have heard stories about those gypsies and witches that live in my country. Most of them are just pretending to be something that they're not. This is the story of a real witch. My grandmother used to live in the same village with a witch. I don't know if the witch was a gypsy or Romanian, but it doesn't really matter. She lived for so many years that no one actually knew her age. This woman claimed to be a witch, and she also claimed that she had this demon who served her. She used to talk about the way that she sold her soul one night in the forest while performing a ritual. In return, she gained powers and the help of a demon. She said that she couldn't die until she convinced someone to take full charge and responsibility of her duty as a witch and sell his or her soul to the darkness as well. She had, I believe, 3 daughters, but people said that their mother's behavior scared them away. They moved to Bucharest and never returned to the village. Now, you'll say that she was most likely a crazy old woman, but no. A lot of people heard strange noises coming from her attic, and she agreed that the sounds were made by her slave or demon. People, even though they were afraid, asked her to solve their problems and gave her money for it. No one ever complained about her work. No one. Everything was put in place, no matter how difficult the task was. Also, people witnessed a lot of hard work getting done overnight in her yard and garden. Stuff that she wasn't able to do alone. Unfortunately, I don't know if she's still alive. I have one more story about a witch. My grandmother met a woman on her way to work. This woman asked my grandmother about the witch. She wanted to know where the witch lived. My grandma gave indications, and then asked her why she was going. She said that a thief broke into her house and stole all of her savings. She wanted her money back. The next day, my grandma met the woman again. She carried a bag. My grandmother asked her what happened. She said she went to the witch and received the promise that she was able to find the money on the table when she returned home. The witch asked in advance for half of that money. The woman agreed. It was better than nothing. Things happened exactly as the witch had said, and she carried the promised money in the bag on the way to the witch's house. One more story is that a woman fell in love with a married man. She went to the witch and told her that she wanted that man. The witch asked her if she wanted the man no matter what the consequences were, and she said yes. In less than a month, his wife fell ill and died. He remarried. He got married to the woman who had indirectly killed his wife. That's why she was seen as a powerful witch. As a real witch. She had some supernatural powers. My family on my dad's side have many stories of witches. I don't know if this will sound real to you, but my family has always told these stories. My uncles, dad, and grandpa all have a story related to a witch encounter. Some of my aunts as well, and grandma. I believe them, and am here to share their stories. My dad's family come from a small ranch in Mexico. The ranch is really huge, so huge that basically all of my family lives there. Usually if you live there, you're related, but there's probably only 4 or 5 other families that aren't related to us. Once my uncles were getting ready for a party. They were young at the time, maybe early 20s. The party they were going to was at another ranch. My uncles used to party a lot. Sometimes they would come back very late. Actually, that was usually the case. They got ready and started heading out. It was very dark, but they didn't care. They got to the party and one of my uncles, Steve, saw these 2 girls away in the corner. He saw them and said that they were very beautiful. They had light-colored hair and light skin. Being in Mexico, it was really rare to see a girl like that. Steve then elbowed my other uncle, Andrew. They then walked up to the 2 girls and started dancing. After a few dances, they headed home. They said bye to the girls and took off on their horses. They had been riding for about 30 minutes when they saw the same 2 blonde girls walking down the dirt road. They stopped, dismounted, and walked over to them. They were just wanting to see if they needed a ride home. My uncle then heard one of them laugh, and in front of his eyes, they disappeared into the darkness. They both got back on their horses and continued. They later came across another laughing sound. My uncle Steve got off of his horse and asked who was there. Yeah, it seems stupid now, but my uncle really didn't care about getting hurt. Steve then saw 2 birds. He said they were really big and as dark as the night sky, and they were laughing at him. Andrew got off of his horse and walked towards Steve at this point. Both of them looked at the laughing birds, confused. Then one of them spoke and said, "We enjoyed dancing with you boys." My uncle really didn't enjoy the fact that he had danced with a witch, so he took out his gun and started shooting at the birds. They just flew around and laughed at him more. Then he started swearing at them. They didn't appreciate it, so one of them flew down and clawed at my uncle's face. He only got a little scratch, so thankfully he was okay. The birds took off, thanking Steve for the dance still and saying his name. My uncle had never given any of the girls his name. The 2 of them grabbed their horses and went back home. That never stopped my uncles from going to parties. This story happened in the early 1930s. He, my great-grandfather, was living in India, which was still under British rule. As he was from a poor family, having a motor vehicle was not even an option for him. He used to travel to nearby places by horseback. One day he went to meet his friend, and it got a little late by the time he was coming home. It was around evening. He decided to take a shortcut through the jungle instead of using the road, which takes almost double the time. On the way he saw a little goat just abandoned sitting beside a tree. He thought it might have lost its way, so he decided to bring it along with him and leave it somewhere out of the jungle. He dismounted, picked it up, and put it at the back of the horse. Just when he was about to get back in the saddle, he noticed something odd. The horns and feet of the goat were facing the opposite direction. Quickly, under fear, he pushed the goat down and climbed up the horse to make a run out of the jungle. He started chanting a prayer to his guru. He was sick. Just as the horse started moving, he heard a female voice from behind. "Your prayer saved you today, but I don't know how you'll get away next time." As he turned back, he saw a woman standing there instead of the goat, just staring at him, her eyes wide open. This is a true story, so it creeps me out even though jungles like those don't exist in the modern world. This incident was really scary. When I was about 10 years old, I lived in a really small town. My friends and I would often play on the trails near the forest after school or on the weekends, building forts, fishing, etc. One day we were walking on a trail and a lady in her mid-50s or 60s came out of the woods. She had dirt all over her hands and pants. She said that her car broke down and that she needed help. We said that we would go get our parents to come help, but she insisted that we come into the woods. We said no, and kept walking, and she just stared at us. It was like she had just shut off as a person when we told her no. The smile went away, everything. Even when we were a couple of kilometers down the road, we could still see her staring at us. Anyways, we get back to my friend's house, and they're playing tag or something in his backyard. And we're playing tag or something like that in his backyard. One of us starts making fun of the lady that we saw earlier, and out of nowhere, he is launched into his parents' shed. It breaks the window on him, and his arm. We all stood there in shock. His parents came out and started yelling at us, blaming us and saying that we threw him. All of us ended up getting grounded. To this day, we all seem to have the same reoccurring dream of seeing the woman in the woods, except every time I dream it, she is closer and closer to us. I was living with my parents in Mexico City. They were missionaries preaching the gospel. When I was 7, we were living in a small town. One day my mom woke me up around 3 or 4 in the morning. She brought me to the window and said, "I wanted to show you why we are here and why we do what we do." She picked me up and showed me a strange woman standing in our front yard doing some ritual or something. She had something on her face and hands that looked exactly like the Elephant Man, like the bark of a tree. She had candles lit and the whole setup. This woman lives in this village, and she knows who we are and what we're doing here. Our being here interrupts her way of life and the energy that she taps into, my mom told me. I'm showing you this because I want you to know what kind of things we fight against. This isn't just preaching the Bible to people and trying to make their lives better. This is a battle against a world of darkness, and you are a part of it. My parents knew this was serious, but weren't really that worried about it because they could just pray it off and nothing ever happened. I bet that made the woman even more angry. On that day, I realized that witches are real and not just a fairy tale, especially since she had stuff growing on her. Demons really do give some sort of power to people. That day was not only a crazy experience, but the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. We moved 2 years later because I wanted to be a normal American kid that goes to school and has friends and stuff. A few years after we left, a family that we knew and had worked with died from a truck driver not seeing them on a cliff. I can't help but wonder if that was just a freak accident or something more. The whole thing creeps me out.